Good afternoon, all you foxgloves and snapdragons out there. Welcome to Friday's episode of Author Reads. I'm your host, Fairy Princess Lolly, and I am here today with author Rachel Litfin. Hi, Rachel.
Hi. Hi, guys.
So I'm really excited. I'm really excited about today's reads because we have a fun way to start this. I coordinated with Rachel for a snail mail package that I got ahead of time because you guys know I love to do unboxings, and so she sent me the book, and I get to. Oh yes, thank you. I'm being handed a tool a tool with which to open the open the box. So I'm gonna start this with you. Please, if you're watching out there, as I'm doing this, hit the like and subscribe. Ring the bell if you want to get notifications of other shows like this. We have some really exciting things here today. Rachel is one of the things she's known for on her own channels, which I would suggest you go and check out. And I will put those up here for you. They're also in the low bar, but she also does live book signings and whatnot on her own channel. So she'll be doing that for us today after her reading. And of course, we have an awesome giveaway for you guys. Okay, here we go. I'm doing it upside down because all of the stuff was on the front and I just didn't know if that was tacky or not. So I'm
fine. You're good.
I am not in my normal spot, so I'm really crunched up today because my normal desk, that's where the computer has a different connection, and the internet gremlins have been giving us all kinds of issues and troubles. Okay, here we go. I don't think there's anything else in there, so I'm going to chuck it. Might not be able to pick it up if I do that. This, the dulcet.
I love it. I know. I love bubble wrap.
But the big ones are the best.
It's definitely, if you are a tactile, very...
Oh, something fell.
Oh, yeah, there's stuff in there. There's pins.
Wait, I have monkey toes, and so I think I can get it. It fell right at my foot, so... Here we go. Ta-da! Okay, so this is one of the book packages actually that you can get on her website. And so here is the pin. I'll show you guys, which is the beautiful. I really love the cover of this book, by the way. And so one of the things that I am just so excited to have you on the show for is because you, I think, are our first author that is also a Rennie.
Really?
Yes, I believe so. Like officially, like Rennie. And so
authors who write fantasy, I feel like you should also be a Rennie, just because
it's a demographic.
That's your people,
right?
Rennies are like, I grew up in Ren Fair, so a little background. So if you want to open it,
yeah. I'm doing.
So I grew up in Renaissance Fair. There's pictures of me 3 years old, dancing with little Renaissance Fair puppets. That's so awesome. And
get the camera to be friendly.
And just growing up in such a nerdy fantasy environment, like Lord of the Rings was my favorite thing ever growing up. I was 9 years old when I read The Hobbit, because that's when Fellowship of the Ring came out that Christmas, and like really that was it for me. And I was just a total fantasy girl. Ran around my backyard in elf ears and capes, and Renaissance Fair was my thing with my family. And sure enough, I ended up becoming a fantasy writer through all of those things. And the cool thing about this is, for those of you who don't know my background, I am Northern California based. I know you are Washington, yes?
Yes.
And so I am Northern California based. So the Northern California Renaissance Fair is like my home fair. That's where I grew up. And it moved. It was in Black Point. It was in, I believe, it was in Novato, and now it's kind of by Gilroy, if you're familiar with that. The people watching California, they'll know where that is.
Like, yeah.
No. But they also run the Southern California Renaissance Fair too, over in Irwindale. So that's their spring fair, and then that's their autumn fair is NorCal Fair.
Oh, so they have more than one.
Oh, yeah, they do 2 giant ones in California every year, and then from there there's a bunch of fringe fairs. And I call the home fair that debuted, the Chronicles of Royal High, that was actually Valhalla Renaissance Fair.
Now we're book twins.
My book's super beat up with all my annotations.
That's okay. That's how mine end up, actually. I actually just did a book review of a book I read recently on on the channel, I just put a video up of it, and the book itself, it's highlighted and underlined, and I do that. Okay, so
the debut fair for these books
Oh,
was
yeah.
Valhalla Renaissance Fair in
I've heard of Valhalla, yeah.
I love Valhalla. My friends run it, and my dear friend Bill Waters, that's his fair, and him and Marty, they run that fair, and they invited me out. I was in a bit of a crisis. I had just launched as an author. I was doing an event. It was a fiasco. I had books to move, basically, and I had to make rent. And I called up Bill, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, come over to my fair.
Bill who?
And I made a little canvas tent, and it just popped up my table because I grew up with Ren Fair. I knew what to do.
Bill who?
Bill Waters.
Bill Waters.
It probably will ring a bell.
Oh, I'm wondering because I'm trying to think of the last name. There's a Bill that is with the Imperial Knights that I think lives in Northern California, and he comes up and does Canterbury Ren Fair.
I'm not sure.
Because his last name is escaping me, so I'm like, I don't know. Is that the same Bill? Like, do I actually know that guy? So, well,
but yeah, and then that basically through a bad situation, all of a sudden it turned out good because that basically made me realize, because I was doing Comic Cons at the time.
Yes, there's a lot of competition there, though.
Right. And honestly, Comic Cons are amazing for independent creators. It's a totally different ballgame now. But you wouldn't think as a fantasy author to also segue, and if you do it right, you can totally tell people about your fantasy books at a Renaissance fair.
Yes.
Because why not? And so that was how that happened.
I am with you on that. My one little children's book that I have, that was where that came out as well. It was through the whole Ren Fair thing. So, but you have written much more than I. So I just want to show everybody really quick.
15 years. So don't. It's 15 years of work.
So it came with this note, and I'm not going to read the whole note unless you want me to, because it's kind of long.
Just basically as a thank you, it says, if you really, really love it, tell your friends, give us a review on Amazon and Goodreads, all that good stuff, because word of mouth is really far. So
yes, it's definitely in this industry. And then also this too, this cool thing. It looks like a quote from one of the books.
It is.
And it looks like you hand did all of this, actually.
I did.
Yes, it's very cool. You've got the metallic gold ink, and I'm like, oh, this all looks cool and hand done, and lovely handwriting. I am very impressed. So
it's a little extra add-on for the packages. You can add a quote note and stuff. And a paladin's heart must be strong is a really big, not necessarily in the first book, but as you get into the second book, that's a very big thing that ends up. That's the series is keep your paladin hood. So in these times.
Well, I'm gonna save showing the inside of the book, which you made so beautiful, until we get to the part of the book signings, just so people can see in case they want to do that. So later on in the show, if you guys want to have a book signed live right here with Rachel, we will be doing that. And then also, if you want to throw any support her way during the course of her reading today, you can do that right through Super Chats, and all of that money will, minus what YouTube takes from us, will be forwarded on to her. I have to kind of put that caveat in there just so folks know. God, I don't want to feel like I'm being dishonest. So today, Rachel, if you will, can you tell us what it is you're going to read? And then I will just turn the camera over to you. And while you're reading, I will be here behind the scenes on mute, taking questions from the audience about this, and then we will go. I will pose those questions to you when we're done. So,
okay, perfect.
All
right, cool. I will be reading, so these are my two books. Book one is, so actually the whole series is the Chronicles of Royal High. And how, Lord of the Rings, that's like the blanket series, So mine is the Chronicles of Royal High. Book one, The Lost Noble. And this came out in 2018. Book 2, we just released this February, literally like 3 weeks before the quarantine started. Yay. Book 2 is Dragon's Wrath, and we ran a Kickstarter for it that was backed in 48 hours, and we closed double the goal, which was so great. And I worked my tail off getting this out and ready for what we thought would be the 2020 fair and con season. So,
yes. The 2020 COVID season, more like it.
So, but I am now, because of that, because, bad situation happens, right? We turn it into a good situation.
Yeah.
I'm offering my book packages on my website because I can't be there to sign it in person. If you'd like to personally order from me, I do so many a week. And if you are in the United States, I will mail you copies. So the series is, the overarch of the series is the teenage royalty in the magical world of Edenarth must band together to become paladins, warriors of light, to fight the invading dragons of their world, while still attending the nobility finishing school Royal High. Although school wasn't hard enough. So it is a very fantasy pop series, if that makes sense, kind of in the vein of like Heath Ledger's A Knight's Tale, or Disney's Descendants is very big right now. It is very fantasy pop, but still very much has those D&D elements to it, those Lord of the Rings elements, just more in a, kind of in a teenager setting. So book 1, let me see, I will give a little spoiler if you guys are reading, but if you guys are listening, but this book follows Adela. She's on the cover. This is her tale. She is a peasant girl who finds out she's the lost princess to the neighboring kingdom. No clue that was her past or anything. She's visited by an estranged grandmother one night who's like, hey, so sorry for banishing your dad for marrying your peasant mother all those years ago, but you need to come with me right now, and we will refine you to become queen, and you'll go to Royal High, and then in 3 years you'll be great to go. You'll be ready to go. And Adela's just like, what? But she makes the decision to embrace it, and her family's kind of been hunted by a shadow that nobody will really name, and we discover as the series goes on just what that is. And so that also factors into Adela wanting to protect her family, basically. And so they were known as the Reddings, but they were officially the Everhearts, and so the Everhearts come out of hiding, and Adela goes to Royal High, where she meets all the other future nobles to the other realms, and she is a shadow warrior, and she learns etiquette and monarchy. She has to fit in. The boys at Royal High find out Adela can fight because her father became a blacksmith in his exile, and he made sure his daughter would know how to defend herself. And so Adela's kind of a little spitfire. She definitely carves an unorthodox path for herself. When the boys at Royal High find out she can kick some butt, they hoodwink her into joining the boys' combat team in the first and she goes to combat tournaments. Got a little bit of Mulan here, though. She wears a helmet. They don't know she's a girl. And she kicks butt and
takes names and leaves the bubblegum at home.
And during the last tournament battle, her helmet falls off. Her hair is blowing in the wind. We see, oh my gosh, she's not a boy. She's Adela. But it is decreed that she technically broke no rules, because no noble girl has ever been insane enough to want to jump in and fight. And so she breaks that mold there, and definitely is the unorthodox princess. And so we see her at Royal High that way. A few weeks after that, she's been at school for a few months now, kind of, her new group of friends. They sneak out and go to a Netherdusk fair, a fairy-run carnival, basically in the middle of the forest. And they have an amazing time. However, they are besieged upon by a raging scarlet dragon. Who seems to keep following Adela around. She sees this dragon in her dreams. She sees her kind of everywhere sometimes, kind of as the book goes on. There is also a deepening mystery as well. There's the guardians of old we start to learn about, which, as we go on, I don't want to give too much away. So as you can see, events are starting to set up. This book picks up in the aftermath after that disastrous festival. They had to sneak back into school. They got caught sneaking back into school. They get in trouble. They have detentions. But Adela is being haunted by these dreams she keeps having of this dragon and of somebody she knew in a different life. There's a prince that she meets at Royal High that she knew in her hometown, Well, all of a sudden, they have to be in the same environment, and it was a horrible breakup. They did know each other when they were younger. So she's having to get over that, but she keeps dreaming about him. She keeps dreaming about the dragon. There's a calling on her life. She doesn't know what's going on. And so the chapters I'm going to read to you in here are about her going into the Grenvar, the forest that surrounds Royal High, to solve these dreams, to find a solution for these dreams that are haunting her, because she can't live like this anymore. She needs help. So there's an alchemy professor who is her favorite professor at Royal High, and she has sought after an elixir in his classroom. She's kind of too scared to tell him what she wants it for, so she takes matters in her own hands.
Uh-oh.
So, there we go. A little bit of an intro.
And this is how your polyjuice potion doesn't work out quite right.
So I'm going to read to you the crazy adventuring princess's adventure into the Grenvar woods.
All right, I'm back here. I'm going on mute.
All right, let's do this. Chapter 2. Adela could feel the sun warming her back as she stood near the edge of the waterfall's clear pool. The blessed rays had found her through the boughs of the mixed conifer forest, a rare sunny moment in the overcast day. She relished the warmth, willing it to soak through the beautiful teal and cream brocade of her velvet bodice, down to her bones. She turned to face the light, eyes closed serenely. She knew that this would probably be the last of any decent weather they would have for a long while. It was the last of the autumn's tide, and the next storm would most likely bring snow to Varenth. And Adela was not one for the cold. Her full lips parted as she inhaled deeply, breathing in the scent of sunshine, decaying leaves, damp earth, verdant moss, and distant smoke from some nearby hearth. She let it linger in her lungs, orienting her ears past the din of the rushing waters, noting the cries of the birds and the soughing of the wind in the trees. The sounds, the smells, and the warmth of the sun permeated her soul, and for a moment, she drifted in those senses, drinking the world in deeply. Finally, her eyes snapped open, and she looked back into the leather-bound volume in her hands. Here, in the Grenvar woods that bordered the castle institution of Royal High, she would hopefully find the missing component and a solution for the dreams that haunted her. She had an educated hunch that demanded to be explored, and time was of the essence, especially if she wanted to accomplish this before the first snow. Adela thumbed through the fragile pages of the aging volume that she had managed to find in the Royal High Library. She passed over maps, histories, and topographies of Varenth and the many kingdoms that the empire encompassed, until she stopped on a section that plotted out a specific area of the Grenvar. Her fingers traced along the markings that indicated a channel of caves, farther in the woods, just a few miles out from Royal High. According to the histories in this book, savage troll clans had once dwelled within this forest, particularly making use of the deep caverns throughout. These tribes, aided by their overgrown arachnid hunting companions, gave the Varenth countryside periodic grief for centuries. It was not until they launched an attack on the capital city of Brindolm itself when the armed forces of the realm finally drove them away and supposedly cleared the forests once and for all. Spiders, Adela thought as a shiver raced over her skin. Giant arachnids. The notion of running into a monstrous spider troubled her worse than running afoul of a troll. She looked up and around at the trees above her. She had read that some spiders could grow to the size of a small pony and leach every drop of a grown man's blood from his skin in moments flat. She shuddered once more. The forest was beautiful and calm with the deepening autumn, nowhere near as frightening as the text had made out. And with this little waterfall nestled just within the border of the woods, she could quickly reach the safety of the Royal High Castle from here should any trouble arise. With a mere handful of trips she had managed to venture into this forest since her arrival, she'd found this clearing without much effort, and it was quickly becoming a favorite place of hers to linger when she could manage to slip away. Adela pulled in a deep breath, found her bearings, and looked down to memorize the map of the Grenvar one last time. These caves should have it, she affirmed to herself as she studied the channel of markings. It was before noon on Saturday, and she had woken up early to complete her detention chores. She had the rest of the daylight on her side, the weather was still fair, and without any mishaps, she could be there and back again by sunset. Easy. With a muted thud and a resulting cloud of dust motes, she clapped the volume shut and slipped it into the leather crossbody satchel she had brought. She then straightened her dress and exhaled with an iron will. Her favorite waterfall would be her starting point. She noted what would be the path of the sun, and then raised the elegant brass compass that hung from her neck, orienting herself to the needle. And Adela, the ocean-eyed girl, quickly turned around, startled, to see Blake emerge from the woods. He jumped up onto a boulder and studied her suspiciously. "Blake, what are you doing out here?" She arched an eyebrow, heart racing at the unexpected interruption. "I could ask you." He paused to jump off the height and landed with a huff in his chest. "The same question." He looked her up and down. "Why do you have a sword?" he asked dryly. "And a dagger?" he added, noticing the other weapon poking out from the backside of her belt. Adela's hand involuntarily went to the blade that hung from the baldric on her hip. Her mouth gave a rueful curve. She was caught. "What are you doing?" Blake pressed, his bright sapphire eyes giving off that signature mischievous gleam. "You're armed," he nodded to her weapons. "I'm going on an adventure," Adela stated confidently, drawing her chest high, showing strength in her resolution. "And of course I'm armed." An air of playfulness rang in her tone. "Armed and you're going alone." Blake closed their distance. "Shouldn't you have a knight in shining armor as your backup or something?" "Blake, you don't honestly think that I need backup, do you?" Adela cocked her head, her teasing smile growing. Blake registered her words. He looked her over once more. No, I don't," he uttered flatly. They broke at his ambition, laughter radiating from both their chests. "And besides," she added buoyantly, "who said that you were my knight in shining armor?" "Alas, not I," Blake sighed dramatically. "I am but merely a charming prince." She smiled, tossed back her lengthy auburn brown locks, nodded her head once as if to say, "Follow me," and set off into the woods. "Good to see you came armed too," she called over her shoulder. The prince's hand touched the hilt of the sword that he too had thought to bring. A playful grin set upon his lips, and without another thought, Blake pursued her. After a few minutes of frolicking through the underbrush, Blake finally asked her what she was adventuring for, realizing that he probably should have gotten that out of the way first before blindly following this passionate princess into the wilds. "Dream tether," Adela replied curtly, never faltering in her stride. Blake seemed confused. "It's an herb, and it grows near the openings of caves, and there's some caves a few miles out in this forest," Adela responded frankly. Bracken and leaves crackled under their feet as they pressed on. "So you're dragging me all the way out here for a plant," Blake responded skeptically. "I was going to go alone," Adela chided, lightheartedly, bringing up her compass, double-checking their course alignment as she blazed through. "Like spell you were," Blake scoffed. "They say this wood is wild." Adela ignored his commentary. "Yeah, well, it's just important that I get some," she affirmed. They continued on in silence for a moment, and Adela thought that his curiosity had been slaked. But Blake broke the lull. "Might I ask why?" Adela paused in her path and looked back to him, unsure of how to respond. It had now been 2 weeks since the Netherdusk Fair, and her two real dreams of Brogan and the dragon showed no sign of relenting. She wanted the dream tether to get to the bottom of it all, to see if she was dream sharing with Brogan, or what these dreams even meant, but she knew how insane it sounded. After a calculated moment, she finally responded, "I've been having bad dreams, and I just really want them to stop." Blake's face fell, growing thoughtful at her explanation. "And this Dream Tether will help. It might, Adela replied, cautious hope in her heart, and then turned to press onward. How? He slowly asked, uncertainty coloring his tone. Adela gave a wistful smile. Dream Tether is a key component in an alchemy elixir that helps with dream clarity. Ah, so you're making an alchemy elixir, Blake began to catch on. Wait, doesn't Brack have any in his lab? He's got like a million weird things in there. If he did, do you think I'd be out here? Adela pointed out. I don't know. You are you. Bit of an adventuring princess of sorts, he teased. Adela smiled impishly at the moniker, hopping up and over a fallen mossy tree. No, Brack had no dream tether in his lab, she admitted, thinking back to a few days prior to when she had found the formula for the elixir of dominion, an enchanted concoction that gave the imbiber control over their subconscious realm. She'd finally gotten the chance to investigate after her detentions and combat practice, and had barely cleaned up and grabbed some quick dinner prepared by the staff in the kitchens, all of whom had grown so incredibly endeared to her, before she had headed straight to Brack's classroom. When she had arrived, she found him taking his supper of stew and ale alone at his messy giant desk. She'd asked if she could peruse the alchemy library in the back of the enormous room to do some extra reading. Brack queried about what she was researching, but Adela had feigned that it was just nothing specific and she wanted to catch up to her palace-born peers on some general alchemy topics. Adela instantly knew that he was skeptical of her narrative, as she was already a great student in his classes, but the professor did not press and had seemed glad to indulge her. He had showed her a few places in his collection that would make for good reading, or so he claimed, and then he let her have at it, going back to his own dinner and work. For this given privacy, she had been deeply grateful. The dragon in her dreams was bad enough, especially with the Champions of Old sleepwalking episode Brack had found her in, but it was also just too embarrassing to admit to a teacher that she was also dreaming pretty powerful dreams of her ex-boyfriend too. She did not want to let Brack in on the insanity happening inside of her head if she could avoid it. Adela had ended up borrowing several promising sources from the professor's shelves and got them all hauled up to her room. It was late into the night, long after Vivian's snores were a constant background comfort, when she had found the elixir of dominion in the brittle leaves of an alchemical book written by someone named A. Ken. Amidst the ramblings, some of them in the tongue of Fae, different alchemy formulas and sketches and methods pertaining to dream theory and dream interpretation in the waking world, the elixir of dominion had popped out to her, just as the elixir of dominion had jumped out to her as it did almost exactly of what she had hoped to find. It allowed the imbiber to stay in control of their dream, only leaving the confines of their subconscious on their own terms. She had been amazed by the sheer luck of it all. Adela then looked over the ingredient list, taking down notes like mad. And even though she was no fae, she had been excited at how easy it seemed to create this particularly advanced formula. The only reagent that had been unfamiliar to her on the list was the dream tether, which also seemed to be used in most of the other mixtures in the book as well. She'd never seen it in Brack's stores, though she had never needed to look for it either. Brack had none in his lab, so then what? He doesn't know where to get it? Blake urged cautiously. Oh, sorry, Adela voiced, realizing she had massively trailed off into her own head, getting lost in her thoughts. She came back into the moment with Blake. Impressively, she had maintained her steadfast momentum through the autumn thicket. Blake gave a quiet chuckle, shaking his head. With a sheepish smile, Adela picked up where she had left off with Blake. No, I'm sure Professor Brack knows where to get dream tether. He just had none when I asked for some in his lab the other day, and it doesn't seem like he'll be in a rush to get any more anytime soon. She bit her lip. Blake's brows pulled together. Why is that? Adela sighed. Because when he asked me what I wanted the dream tether for, I was too shy to tell him it was for my bad dreams. So instead, I said that I wanted the dream tether to brew a tea mixture to help fall asleep, and then he went and grabbed the exact mixture I pretended to want right from his shelves. He looked so proud, told me it was his favorite. So now I have lots of sleepy time tea and no elixir to actually help the problem. An intensely amused sound escaped Blake's chest. Gotta love that guy, he murmured. Brews his own ale and sleepy time tea. Yes, well, for what I've been dealing with, I don't think that sleepy time tea is gonna cut it, Adela voiced, annoyance creeping into her tone. And our next storm will undoubtedly bring snow, so... And you don't like the cold, Blake ascertained. No. She shuddered as a chillier wind blew through the forest, rustling the golden leaves around them as if on cue. She looked at her compass once more, and they continued on. So, what are your dreams about then, if it's really this pressing? Blake asked with sincerity. I mean, I don't want to pry if I'm overstepping or something, he added quickly. Adela stopped and gazed at him, her eyes an ocean and a storm roaring within herself. Okay, I won't pry, he nodded, no jest in his voice. Adela debated for a moment, desperately wanting someone to understand. She compromised. The dragon, from Netherdusk. She's a big part of the dreams now. She, Blake raised a brow. Yeah, she, I'm certain, Adela admitted. Blake grew quiet, caught in his own reverie at the mention of the horrible beast. At length he cleared his throat. Well, if it's any consolation, you're not alone, Adela. He assured her, though it seemed as if he was also assuring himself. I know you've only been here a couple months, but we are your friends. It's okay to let people in. And considering what happened in that clearing, we've all been through a lot together. Adela's heart swelled with his kindness, and she turned to look into his sapphire gaze. She seemed to catch him off guard. Thank you, she breathed gratefully, reaching out to touch his arm. Blake swallowed hard at the sudden connection. Anytime, he nodded. His eyes then dropped to the baldric and hilt on her hip as he coughed once. So, not to ruin the moment or anything, but did your dad make your sword? Adela dropped her arms and looked down to her weapon, giving a generous laugh. Blake smiled shyly. Because it looks kind of like something we have in the combat armory, but the craftsmanship is too smooth, he explained, remembering when Adela told him about the contract her father once had with the combat team of Royal High. It's not from the combat armory. It's mine, Adela winked, mirth still alight in her beautiful face. And yes, this is the one my father made for me, she added thoughtfully as she turned to power on through the forest. Awesome! You've never mentioned it before, Blake replied brightly. He'd never seen a girl carry at the school. Of course, he had never seen a girl fight on the combat team before Adela came along, either. I had it sent to me this last week, she replied. With all things considered, I wanted a bit more protection on me. When did you get your permit for it? Blake asked, his interest piqued. As assistant manager for the combat team, he did not recall Coach Peterson signing any new permits this week. Permit? Adela echoed, confused. Wait, Blake pressed, trying to keep up with her. Did you smuggle your own sword into Royal High? No. Are we not allowed to just have our swords? Adela half frowned, her confusion deepening. No. They do weapons checks on our quarters. We've got to have permits for what we carry, he stressed. Adela stopped once more and looked at him, square in the face. You mean to tell me you and Jason have permits for the dozen-some-odd swords and axes under your beds right now? She referred to the first time she hung out in their dorm after she made the combat team. The princes had eagerly showed her all their favorite battle-worthy friends. All accounted for. Blake pressed his lips together. Adela's brow furrowed. No one's told me about permits, and we're in combat together. It's never come up. Why? She demanded. Because, Blake paused, quickly realizing the answer. They don't weapons check for girls, he frowned. Adela gave a sad smile. No, I suppose they wouldn't weapons check for girls. Hey, Coach Peterson does the permits. You're already on the combat team. I'm sure he'll gladly get you set up, Blake offered, desperately wanting to be helpful. Adela sighed, adjusting her satchel. Thank you. I'll talk to Peterson when we get back. Good, Blake nodded. Don't want to give the admin any more reason to take you away from us. His smile was warm. Adela echoed it. She then returned to her expedition of the Grenvar Wood. I'm going to take a quick drink of water because there's a scene break. 2 seconds. How am I doing, Amy?
Water is definitely water is understandable for sure. So you're reading a lot.
Okay.
And by the way, it's great. Yes, no, it's very good.
I love this. So, okay. All right. Okay. Blake and Adela's banter had soon tapered off as they found a steady pace, losing themselves in the afternoon of the wild woods around them. They ventured through strange mossy places, past peculiar rock formations, and journeyed along paths seemingly carved into this world by another, much larger being long since gone. Gold, amber, and scarlet leaves fluttered and floated about them like snow, the winds rustling these precious autumn flakes from their branches. The rushing notes of distant waters echoed while singing birds darted through the airy boughs of the canopy above. Well, couldn't I be? Blake suddenly spoke up, breaking the forced melodic spell. What? Adela barely turned to see him over her shoulder. What I said, a knight in shining armor, Blake replied. I could be. My knight in shining armor? Adela faltered in her step for a second, but still pressed onward. She was not sure where he was taking this. Well, he stuttered. Adela took another quick glance behind her. She noticed a slight flush on Blake's cheeks. Was their rare pink tint due to their hike? Or something else? Is he nervous? Why is he nervous? He's one of my dearest friends at Royal High. Adela was sure that she had never seen Blake nervous like this before. Yes, she prompted as she continued through the unfamiliar terrain. Blake took a steadying breath as he kept up after her. So, the real reason why I followed you out here is because I had been wanting to ask you a question. Oh, okay, go for it, Adela encouraged, still deftly weaving through the forest. Adela, wait, I can't ask with you blazing up a trail by the raid. Why can't I say this? Adela, stop! Blake pleaded, flustered. What? Adela exclaimed, breathless and confused as she halted and turned to face him. Will you go to the Frost Waltz with me? He finally blurted, the words rushing off his lips. Oh, Adela simply replied, stunned at this turn of events. Sure. Sure, Blake echoed with uncertainty. Yes, I'm sorry. I just get so one-track-minded, Adela apologized, realizing how rude she must sound. I know you do, Blake gave a shaky laugh. Your ambition is one of the many things I admire you for. And anyway, I am making a bigger fuss of this than I should have. To the chase, I just wanted to know if you had any plans for the Frost Waltz, and if not, would you like to come with me? His seemingly effortless composure returned. Plans? You mean like a date? Adela put a title on it, her mouth curving coyly. Yes, Adela, a date. Please be my date to the Frost Waltz. Blake's cobalt eyes twinkled. He really was incredibly handsome. A true Prince Charming. I'd love to, Prince Blake, she delightedly replied. Great, he beamed back, reflecting her expression. And that's off my chest now. He exhaled like he had been holding his breath all afternoon. Wait, were you nervous? Adela skeptically poked. A little, he cocked his head. The girl scoffed in response. Ma, you? She laughed as she shrugged. They started back on their course once more. Blake, on top of being one of the most outgoing people I have ever met, you're also one of my closest friends here. There's nothing to be nervous about with me. That's what you think, he murmured to himself. Adela did not notice and casually added, I was really beginning to think that no one was going to ask me. Oh, why ever would you think that? Blake responded coolly. He thought back to how he had clearly made it known to almost every guy in their classes and combat team that no one was allowed to ask Adela Everhart to the Frost Waltz before he could. He even let Vivian and Kate in on it so they would not try to play matchmaker and interfere. Well, Brogan's taking Vivian, and Jason asked Kate, and I've said it before that I'm pretty sure I scare guys away, she explained as she hopped through some roughly placed boulders. Blake followed close behind. Well, apparently you don't scare me. His voice was strong, almost challenging. Adela felt a blush touch her cheeks and was glad she was facing forward. How's your knee holding up, by the way? She changed the subject to his combat injury. It's a lot better. I'm having more and more good days than bad days. Honestly, I think I'm fine to fight again, but Coach Peterson still doesn't want to take a chance with me on any of the rounds. It's okay, I guess. I mean, it's only sophomore year, right? Blake seemed like he was still trying to make peace with being sidelined for most of the season. Adela tried to turn around, wanting to offer a comforting reply, but her foot abruptly slipped and her body disappeared as she gave a terrifying cry. Adela! Blake yelled as he instantly lunged for her outstretched hands. Chapter 3. Get some water real quick. The ground had given way, and the girl was hanging precariously off the side of a steep drop-off that neither of them had noticed through the thick foliage. Boulders and rocks that she had disturbed tumbled down below her dangling feet. Blake! She cried, her fear-filled eyes locked onto his as he grasped her forearms. I got you! I got you! Blake grunted as he pulled her up with everything he could muster. They managed to bring enough of her over the lip of the cliff, and she kicked to pull the rest of her body up onto the solid ground, still grasping Blake's pulling arms for leverage. You okay? You hurt? Del? He breathed as she scrambled into his arms. He pulled her further away from the ledge. Her dress was filthy and tattered. Yes, I think I'm okay, she replied, breathless and rattled, curling against his chest and into his hold. Blake held the girl in his arms and gently rocked her for a moment, his heartbeat hammering painfully from fear and adrenaline. He looked down and brushed strands of hair back from Adela's cheeks. No backup needed, huh? He finally whispered to her, referencing their earlier banter. Adela conceded his point with a grim nod, trying to still her erratic breaths. Blake made to stand and helped her up in the process, taking extra care to ensure their footing was stable. He then tried to brush off their excess dirt, but Adela gasped once she saw past him. By the radiance, she breathed, frozen. What? He followed her gaze and looked down, seeing what they had nearly fallen into. Below them was a pit-like basin, which led into the mouth of a dank cave, swathed in a curtain of lichen. Arcing around this secluded cove were sheer cliffs, and the nearest access down to ground level was a set of coarsely carved steps in the cliff face adjacent to them. Crude tools, bones, broken artifacts, hewn seats, and a handful of crumbling moss huts were scattered about the clearly abandoned campsite. Giant wisps of spider webs hung from the many surrounding trees below and above them. The overgrowth of the Grenvar wood had clearly reclaimed this once inhabited dwelling place. Whoa, she mouthed, taking in their find. She began to move, keeping a watchful eye on the bluff's edge along the basin. Adela, don't. Adela, Blake whispered as he trailed after her. Blake, this is it, she replied in the same hushed tone. That cave down there looks just the sort to have Dream Tether. Look at all the shrubbery surrounding it. Okay, that's great, Adela, but you do know that what this also looks like? A troll encampment, he huffed incredulously. Blake, Lawrence troops cleaned out these forests in recent years. This place is obviously abandoned. Also, it's daytime, and cave trolls can't be in the daylight, she quietly retorted. We're good. Are you seriously crazy? Blake insisted, keeping on her heels, staring in bewilderment at the back of her head. Adela ignored him, and within minutes, she had toiled her way around the curvature of the cliff to the steps that led down. She studied the entrance of the cave, which was much closer now, and spied what looked to be the herb around it. I think I see some Dream Tether, Blake, over there. She pointed to the long, silvery teal leaves. See it? It looks just like what I saw in the alchemy book. Yes, Adela, I see the plants. Blake sighed wryly. Adela drew closer to the crooked stone stair, but paused thoughtfully before her descent, looking to her feet and her tattered dress. With her left arm, she drew out her dagger from the back of her belt. Blake voiced worried, giving her a deeply puzzled look. She ignored him and began to hack and rip away at the remainder of her skirts Anything below the knees had to go. She mumbled to herself, wishing she had brought skirt pins instead of having to cut the fabric. Glad she at least had worn minimal layers in the first place. Blake chuckled once, watching her as she got rid of anything that inhibited her movement, casting the scraps aside. Much better. Don't know why I didn't do that before, blazing through the wilds. She smiled to herself, sheathing her weapon, shaking out her newly freed legs. Wonder how many dress code violations that's worth, Blake remarked flippantly. Didn't you hear? I'm starting a trend. She winked and moved to the steps. Ready. Wait, Blake grabbed her hand. I'll go first. I'll catch you if you fall. Adela didn't like feeling the damsel in distress type, but she was still a bit startled from her near-deathly slip a moment ago. She let him move ahead. Blake kept a protective hand outstretched when he could, ready for any slips, taking every caution down the steep slope of the crooked and crude path. It was a slow process, but their labor soon paid off. Almost there, he breathed as he jumped to the level ground on the bottom. He held out his hand for hers and guided her footing safely to where he was. Before Adela could thank him, her nose suddenly registered the foul smell that seemed to emanate from the cave. Ugh, that stench. Yeah, it's a troll horde, all right, Blake grimaced. No matter how long they've been gone, it's said that that smell can linger for centuries. Adela shook her head, trying to clear her senses the best she could. She looked around. Being in the encampment itself, far below the high ground, her perspective began to change. Down here, she noted that the spider webs were much larger and more dense than she had initially gauged. She also realized that many of the items left behind looked to have dried blood on them. She drew closer to the center of the basin's camp. How far out would you say we are? Blake asked, surveying the seemingly forgotten world around them. As Adela thought about the answer to his query, she began to have a strange feeling about this place, one that she had not felt on the cliffs, and her hair stood on the back of her neck. She looked to the entrance of the cave and saw the several silver... Oh, this is a tongue twister. She looked to the entrance of the cave and saw several slivers of silvery teal dream tether leaves around it. Her stomach turned as she plucked up the courage to go near and grab some. Maybe 5 miles, maybe more. We had a really good pace. She looked back to answer him. Blake seemed uneasy too. Del, we should probably leave. Quickly grab what you need and let's get. Before Adela could respond, a wispy string of web listlessly latched onto her forearm. She stiffened up immediately, eyes glued wide with horror, and suddenly snapped into a vicious flailing about, giving great effort to flick the web away. She stopped once it was off, but not before she had almost run into Blake's arms. She halted short, remaining in front of him, eyes still wide and burning, nostrils flared. What the spell was that? Blake gave a bemused whisper, looking to the nebulous webs where she had once stood. He glanced back to her and sarcastically assumed, You're afraid of spiders? No. Her mouth was a tight line. Oh, come on. He began to snicker. The adventuring princess gets all excited to go herb hunting in former troll territory, but goes squeamish at the sight of a spider web. And here you were ready to charge into that cave. Adela glared at him. Just because I may be scared does not mean I would not go. Her resolve was adamant. And besides, the webs didn't look this bad when we were up above. Luckily, with the trolls gone, the spiders should be gone too, so these should just be remnants. Right, but let's not find out, okay? Blake humored her. Let's just grab that dream tether crap and bolt. Adela did not respond as she looked up to the trees on the cliffs. Del, he urged. Blake, she whispered, her gaze fixated above. What happened to the birds? In that moment, both royals went utterly still as they strained to hear the chattering calls of the Grenvar's critters. But a hush had fallen on their chirping songs. The forest had become eerily soundless, breathless, airless. Ah! Blake shrieked as his body was knocked to the ground. A milky wisp of rope had his foot and was beginning to drag him back. Blake! Adela cried as she drew her weapons with a ring to slice at the web which had a hold on him. Huge spiders, hairy, dark, and thick, came forth from hiding. One spindled down from the treetops, and another emerged from the dirt below a pile of bones and rocks. Both were the size of wolves. The spider that came from the cave, though, the one whose rope had caught Blake, was taller and larger than any forest creature they had ever seen. It was drawing the prince into the waiting darkness, working frantically with its legs on its web. From its hideous jowls dripped venomous saliva. "Blake, hold on!" Adela cried once more as she finally succeeded in cutting through his bonds, releasing him. But she gave another scream as a steely, strong web from another spider caught her waist and forcefully pulled her back. "Adela, damn it!" Blake spat as he got up to help her, the other two venomous creatures scuttling and hissing after him. The arachnid that had ensnared her clapped together its dripping pincers with skin-crawling clicks and snaps. The girl struggled fiercely, hacking with her dagger, swiping with her sword at the webs, finally freeing herself. She shot away like an arrow, meeting Blake at the center of the camp, lining up together back to back. The three monstrous fiends closed in around them. "We're outnumbered," Adela breathed, ready with her weapons. "And there could be more." "I bet there's more," Blake replied, his sword finally brandished. He had managed to pick up an old piece of wood that could easily pass for a shield. The spiders hissed and reared up, creeping closer, threatening, playing with their prey. "Come on!" Blake's roar echoed as he flourished his sword, egging the creatures on to make another move. A flash of web sprayed out from the largest of the three beasts and draped across Adela and Blake, almost immobilizing them. The other spiders attacked with the signal, and the two royals fought and sliced away as best as they could against the onslaught. Adela managed to cleave off the two front legs on one arachnid, and the monster gave a horrifying shriek as its body hobbled and thumped about. Goopy, dark green sludge sprayed out from its wounds. Blake was knocked onto his back by the other spider, but quickly rolled around, cursing the tacky webs, trying to maneuver away from the impaling, hungry pincers. He thrust his sword up right as the spider came down upon him, skewering its underbelly. It gave a gurgling cry, but did not let up on its attack. Blake lost the grip on his hilt as the spider jerked, sending the sword flying. He was now unarmed. The prince held up his makeshift wooden shield to deflect the strikes that he could not tumble away from, but the wood was cracking, threatening to shatter with each new hit from the unyielding fangs of the enraged predator. "Blake, we can't do this!" Adela screamed as another wave of webs enveloped her, dragging her down. She sliced away at them furiously as the one whose legs she had maimed hobbled closer, frenzied fangs dripping and waiting. The hope of survival slipped away as sticky webs upon webs continued to coat them. Adela could barely swipe, and she felt the hairy legs of one of her foes upon her, pawing and kneading her flesh. "Back! Back!" A commanding voice bellowed as a blinding, piercing light filled the dark surroundings. The assailing arachnids shrieked with pain, stunned into submission. Adela managed to scrape back the webs from her face and saw that Lenroe was there with them, flying around in his full form. His usually calm, sprightly face was contorted with a fierce sneer. Beams of sun-bright energy jutted out from his palms, driving the monsters toward the dank pitch cave. A bolt of sizzling blue and white magic pulsed out from his fingertips, physically hitting the arachnids, causing sparks, webs, and spider hair to fly in every direction. "Away, beasts!" The Fae cried out once more as the spiders scuttled and skittered back towards their dark hole. "You will not claim these children!" he declared as he continued to shower them with the blinding rays. The arachnid howls echoed as they entered the cave, ambling to get as deep into its black reaches as possible. Soon, their wails were no more, and everything was still. Lenroe landed where the two stunned royals were and helped them peel back the remainder of the webs. "What in the world are you two doing?" he gravely scolded, his voice almost too even. His bright silver eyes were fiery, and his hands and slender wings still glowed with magic. With every web he touched, the sticky ropes began to dissolve. I wanted to get some dream tether," Adela whispered as Blake helped to get the last bit of webs away from her legs. Lenroe raised a bunch of fresh dream tether leaves bound together with a thin leather cord from the satchel around his hip. "You mean this?" he asked sharply. "Yeah, those," Adela quietly affirmed, utterly gutted at her own recklessness. "Brack sent me on an errand to collect some things that we were low on in the lab. I just so happened to be in the area when I heard your cries," Lenroe stated grimly. Incensed, disappointed, brave yet fearful, Lenroe's sprightly face somehow displayed these emotions all at once. Outside of his tinier, transfigured form, a trait some fae possessed, he stood a pinch taller than Adela and much shorter than Blake. He was missing his usual pewter hat, and his mousy brown hair stuck up in every direction around his pertly pointed ears. This was not on purpose. Are either of you hurt then? Anything broken? Lenroe critically eyed the royals. No, I think we're okay, Blake uttered. He looked to Adela. He had only wanted to ask her to the frost waltz, but this was all much more than he had bargained for. The princess just shook her head. Please don't tell the administration about this, she breathed softly, not answering the fae's question, looking down at her muddy boots. A lump pained her throat as tears threatened to brim over her long lashes. Lenroe's face relaxed ever so slightly. His high cheekbones and moonlight eyes did not regain their signature composure of indifference, but the fire within him seemed to subside. I won't tell them about this, but you must never again go so deep into the woods. At least not alone, he somberly instructed. The trolls may be gone, but the children of their pets have remained. The teens bobbed their heads up and down. Now, let's get you safe and sound. Lenroe levitated to his natural hover as he began to lead the way home, back to the castle. I'm going to stop there.
That was wonderful. Let me bring us back here. Bring us together again.
There's a few parts in Dragon's Wrath that are my favorite, and the Grenvar adventure is one of my favorites. So.
It was really great. Thank you so much for reading that. Now, I just want to say real quick, because it is 3:06, but I am okay with continuing.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
We had a late start, and I tried to keep that to about a half hour, so I think I went a little over, but yeah.
It's okay. It was good. So we have a bunch of questions from the audience.
Let's do it.
From the audience, yes. Okay, and so I wanted to... yes, okay. I will do those first. Okay, I was thinking about like the order of doing things really fast, because I wanted to remind people that they can actually just get these books that you read from this series from you today, right here live on the show, and you will sign it for them live on the show.
I will sign you a book live right now. Yes, for the giveaway. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes. And so, but also if they just want to super chat that money straight through, we will give that to you, and they can also buy them for themselves as well. So, but let me get to questions here for you.
Yeah.
And
was my audio okay, by the way?
Yeah, there was a couple hinky spots, but overall it was fine.
I'm getting a new webcam and a new mic coming in, so they haven't come in yet. So yeah.
I understand this pain so much. So, okay. Let me get this back up, and here we go. So, questions. There was a bunch. So, one of them was, of the characters thus far that we have met, who is your favorite one to write?
Is this somebody who is familiar with the books? This sounds like someone.
Yes, it is. It is.
Familiar with the books.
Yes.
My favorite character to write. Oh gosh.
It was from Winter Le Fay. Does that name sound familiar?
What?
Winter Le Fay. That's
Winter
who.
Le Fay. If I had to guess, that might be Pixie. If that's Pixie.
Yes, it is Pixie. Okay. That's what they said. Yes.
My favorite to write so far is, I love writing Brack, the alchemy professor. We didn't even get to meet him yet. But that's who Lenroe is, the alchemy professor's assistant. So Lenroe is Faye, and Brack, Professor Brack, is so fun to write. He is a big, we're obviously not in Earth, we're in Edenarth, but he's got a Scottish accent to me, and he's big and hulking. He's like Gandalf meets Hagrid, but played by Gerard Butler. And he's my favorite characters to write. He's so funny and charming and gruff, but he's very sweet underneath it all. I love writing Brack. I love writing Jason and Blake because when you got Blake, but when he gets together with Jason, the two of them just like go off with each other. They are so fun. Adela is actually the hardest for me to write. She's actually the hardest for me to write. She's very close to my heart, so that's why. But writing Jason and Blake and writing Brack are my favorites to write.
What makes it hard for you to write Adela?
Sometimes she's very easy. Sometimes she's very easy to write. But
is it that you feel like you want to spoil that character, or favor the character, or
I'm always. I can't explain. I wish I could explain it better, but it's just sometimes Adela is the hardest for me to write. But actually the hardest for me to write is Adela. Yeah,
that's her.
Yeah, which is weird. She's my protagonist, but she's the hardest for me to write. But I love her. She's my girl.
So okay, so the next question is, do you hide, and this one was from Gunther, do you hide any secrets in your books that only a few will find?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Actually, so I don't know if I want to. Yeah, I'll say it. There is a Star Wars Easter egg in Dragon Draft towards the end. It's just it's a line that is talking about having the high ground.
Mm-hmm.
And anybody familiar with the whole "I have the high ground, Anakin"? Like you can't.
Oh, right.
I totally do it. I totally do that. And also too, there is a Leroy Jenkins nod because I played a lot of World of Warcraft in my day, and I miss it actually very much. I miss gaming. I want to get back into gaming. But I played World of Warcraft for about 4 or 5 years. My parents still play to this day. At one time, a whole family raided together in the house. It was fun. Where I get a lot of my paladin lore, and there are scenes. So I've been writing this series since I was like 13, 14, 15 years old and stuff. So there are concepts and scenes and characters and even some dialogue. I mean, everything has had a complete rewrite, but there are certain dialogue, even some like word for word things that have survived over a decade, made it into this book. And one of them was this Leroy Jenkins nod I did. And I don't think Leroy Jenkins, but the situation is very like charging.
Right.
And they say their own name as they charge. Yeah, there are Easter eggs. There are things that like certain people will get. So do look for them. And if you think it's something, it is probably it.
It probably is. It's a little bit of some 1984 treasure. Not 1984. Ready Player One.
Yes. I even put Mean Girls in here. Someone says something, and someone is just like, she doesn't even go here. I'm so bad, but it fits so great. It fits so great. Like it doesn't take you out of the story.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure it'll make you laugh really hard.
Okay. We have how do you balance making demands on the reader with taking care of the reader?
Can I see the question on the screen?
Yes, you can.
Thank you. How do you balance demands on the reader, taking care of the reader?
Do we need to ask for clarification on this question?
No, I kind of get what they're saying. So with storytelling, and this is why I got I got really pissed off with the Game of Thrones the show, right? I think most of us did. They rushed the last 2 seasons. The first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones were perfect. They were amazing. And yeah, if you're working off of books, you'll diverge a little bit. It's known. I mean, it's going to happen. But the reason why we were so pissed off about that is because I'm not necessarily upset about the things that happened. I'm upset because they did not earn it through storytelling. They did not get us to the point where even if we didn't want those things to happen, like, okay, the Red Wedding. We don't want that to happen, but it hurts so good. It hurts so bad. Because the storytelling was there. It was brutal. the things that happened, it was so quick and so cheap and stuff. And so like, if you're making demands on the reader, you have to make sure they're at that point, and or you have set it up correctly. Like if it is a twist ending, you go back through it and you can see the twist all along, you know, because you earned it, you told the story correctly, so therefore it's cohesive and it's not just like a Deus Ex Machina.
Right.
You know I Deus Ex. Okay, example: Adela and Blake getting besieged by the spiders, right? I Deus Ex Machina a little bit. Lemuel came out of nowhere, but that's unusual for Lemuel because he runs errands in the forest for Brack.
Right.
So, like, I've already set that up. Now, if we didn't know who Lenro was, if we never find Lenro again, like, that doesn't make sense. So, and also taking care of the reader, too. You don't just want to, like, just... You got to earn your heartbreaks.
There's a term for that, isn't there? There's a term for when in a story everything is going along, but say the one thing that they need to complete this is Excalibur, and then all of a sudden Excalibur falls out of the sky and they're like, oh, very good, now we will go and, you know, slay the serpent or whatever it is.
And if you're writing trope and farce and comedy on purpose, great.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Trope and comedy and all that stuff. But if you are genuinely trying to write very, very, very seriously, you obviously can't do that. It's like in Game of Thrones, you know, during the show when Euron, the random guy on the ocean that wanted to marry Cersei out of nowhere, we literally have not seen any buildup on this person at all.
Yes.
And all of a sudden he's randomly like shooting Daenerys' dragon out of nowhere. Like, we didn't see that. Like, there was no build up to where those fleets would be. There was no build up to, like, there was no storytelling there. It was just, oh, this is how it is. This is how it's happening. What? Like,
so you're just careful to make sure that you have all of those bases covered. But I think that's what makes it intricate and good. And in the very successful series, like not the television version of Game of Thrones or the movie version of Harry Potter, but I think the written version of those, one of the things that does make them so successful is that there are all those little details, like just like you said, like, and when you go back, then you can see, oh, here is where all the things were leading. This was leading to this, and that was leading to that, and then they all culminate. So,
which is important to storyboard. Know where you're going, and if you have a plot hole, do work on it. I know it's easy to just like put it off and stuff, but that's where you start to run yourself into a corner, and nobody wants that, you know. And also to taking care of the reader. I love a feel-good story, and I don't know if I'm outing myself there as a writer, but I'm a feel-good story person, and if I'm gonna, like,
I'm with you on that. So the world is sometimes a very terrible place. I want feel-good.
Sad stories, morose stories that make you think, they absolutely have a place in the world.
Yeah.
But I really don't think it's my place to tell those stories. And I want to be an escape for people that they gladly want to go back to time and time again if they need to not think about sorrow in the world and stuff.
Right.
I had a gal even told me my books helped her get over a breakup. Aww. And that just made me so happy because I was just like, I feel you. I'm so happy I can help. So like so you know what? I am going to take care of you as a reader. If you're watching this, just know, as a vote of confidence in my books, you can get my books and you will be satisfied.
So we have, what kind of research do you do, and how long do you spend researching before beginning a book? And I have my own question that kind of builds on this one a little bit, if I can ask it after this one. But audience first.
No, because I might be able to answer both, like, kind of in the same, if it builds on it.
Well, so while you were reading, one of the questions that kind of came to my own mind was, oh man, I have this like list of questions that I put down, and I'm like, oh no, which one was mine? Let's see, because now they're all blended together. Yes. So mine was, has being in the atmosphere of Ren Fair been a boon with regards to learning or research? This is why I say builds upon learning some
Have
of the
it been a what?
terminology, like the types of swords and the weird words like shoulder pauldron and clothing descriptions and other ambient details.
Okay. Yes. Okay. This will tie in. Yes. Okay. So that's so what kind of research do you do and how long do you spend researching before beginning a book? And then you said being among Renaissance fair and stuff, and if that helped with basically the research, shoulder
Right.
pauldron, hill,
Right.
Yes, I would say yes. But also on that note, playing video games helped me too, because I grew up playing RPGs, Fable, freaking, I loved the Lord of the Rings, Two Towers, and Return of the King. I played the heck out of those on my Game Boy. I was like 10 years old learning about like pauldrons and chainmail and brigadine and like scale mail and like just different style, longbow, short bow, composite bow, like just all kinds of stuff. I would say the hard part is because I wrote these books over a series of, now officially I've been working on them for 15 years. I published book 1 after 13 years of work. I was 13 years old when I was first inspired with the first concepts of Royal High, of Adela and stuff. And at first it was just a little teenage outlet. For me, it was just like a writing project. And like by the time I was like 17, I ended up with like an 80-page manuscript. And I was like, and my parents, I would tell them about it, I'd read it to them, they'd encourage me. And we all knew after a while that Rachel has a book series. Like, this is totally a book series. So it was just basically, I did grow up in it. But coming up on this book that I'm working on right now, I am actually having to research all sorts of things like knights and knighthood, and I'm researching more weapon styles. My friend Bill Waters is going to, we're going to start to sword fight a little bit. He wants to teach me a few things and I would like to learn personally. And so right now, I don't know if it's necessarily the amount of time you spend researching. I mean, I'm a total Google person. I could sit down for 2 days and fall down a rabbit hole and practically have a PhD on something just because I'm always
it just keeps getting, there's so many interesting things.
Right. So like, and I'm always reading stuff. So I wouldn't say necessarily it's like time spent. I just say get a good enough grasp to where you feel confident, and then go for it. Interview people, talk to people, read books, YouTube. You can learn everything from YouTube.
That's
everything
yes.
on YouTube.
It is true.
Yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily.
I mean, I built a spaceship from YouTube.
Like I learned how to change a flat tire from YouTube. I learned how to all that stuff.
So what is so you have a bunch of fantasy elements that are in your books.
Yes.
And of course, it's not as if you can actually go out and research giant spiders, like real giant, maybe if they're prehistoric or something, I don't know. But you know what I'm trying to say, right?
They theorized that spiders were huge back then.
So
the atmosphere was different. Random encyclopedia.
we had a brief discussion in the chat while you were reading about the spiders as to what was worse, giant spiders or little spiders, because giant spiders are huge and you can't crush them, but little spiders, although you can crush them, they can crawl on you, and that's creepy.
Well, here's the thing, little spiders, how many?
How many? Yeah, that's a good point.
How many? And are they poisonous?
That is actually what one of the people said.
You know what? As much as I would not like it, you could cover me, and nobody better ever do this to me ever. But you covered me in a bunch of daddy long legs. I would freak out, but I wouldn't die.
Well, they can't bite you.
Black widows.
Ooh.
So like semantics, right? We're getting real specific.
Right.
With the giant spider thing, I've always been an arachnophobe. I've always hated spiders. But as I've gotten older, I've actually gotten much braver against them, and even more so now. I've adopted the I wouldn't want to be killed for being in the wrong place, wrong time motif. So if I can save them, I actually do, and I try and put them in the garden. Even though
I do too. I do too.
That's like,
I
nah.
yes. I just feel bad. I'm like, the door is just right there.
I don't like spiders. I never have liked spiders, and so I figured that would be a little thing I'd give Adela. She's very brave and very headstrong, and so foolish in her bravery at points. But the girl doesn't like spiders, and so also too with the giant spiders being the once pets of the forest trolls. I definitely took that from World of Warcraft because you have troll hunters in that game. And some of the first familiars you can get are like actually like giant spiders to be like your little hunting pet. So I was totally inspired by that. So I figured, oh, well, the trolls have been cleared away, but what if the spider remnants remained? And then of course Shelob, Sam's fight with Shelob in Return of the King. So
yes.
Again,
So here's my question. Yeah. So here's my question, because we're talking about mythical, or cryptids, right? And what is your opinion on? I mean, one might say that, say, Tolkien or even World of Warcraft, because so many people are familiar with that lore. Dungeons and Dragons, another one, are authoritative to some degree when they create these cryptid characters, right? So, for example, one might say Bram Stoker is kind of an authoritative story writer when it comes to what constitutes a real vampire. Okay, even though we're talking about a mythical thing, eventually the lore around it sort of solidifies it, so that when somebody comes along and writes about sparkly vampires that can go out in the daylight, everybody gets rankled by that. Like, these aren't real vampires. This isn't. So how do you feel about breaking from that? Not saying that you've done that, but how would you feel about breaking from what is classically accepted as a mythological creature's perceived the perception of a mythological creature that is in the public eye?
So it's interesting, right? Because for one thing, who makes the rules?
Right.
Right?
Who
makes the rules?
Like, your book, your rules. So.
And if you're telling a good story, and frankly, if you're selling millions of copies of said story,
right? Which I am absolutely confident that in like five more minutes that you will hit that 1 million mark. Just boom, I feel it right there.
I hope that, man. I hope so. Like this whole year, you guys, like there were so many wonderful things planned, and now I feel like I'm back to being a hermit again. Because I hermited really hardcore writing my second book. I mean, like, legit, I wasn't leaving my house for days on end. I wasn't answering like messages. I mean, there was a lot. But in my whole mindset of like, I can go live my life when it's done. I can go live when it's done. It has to get done. Fair season's in. Oh God, 2 months. Has to get done.
And then no fair season. Yeah. Boo hiss, but you got it done.
It'll happen. I don't doubt it. I've never, there are times where I doubt myself, but the thing is, I have never actually doubted this.
I'm really excited to read them after I've got them right here, ready to be read. I love reading this kind of thing. It's like the more fantasy version of Harry Potter a little bit, It's like
it is. And I want to go back to the cryptid thing too.
Oh yeah. Okay, sorry.
Because that's going to tie into what I do because I write about paladins.
Okay.
And I want to kind of talk about that in a second. But on the Harry Potter note, obviously it is a royal boarding school. So it's like, instead of magic school, royal boarding school. But it's this magic, because fairies. I even forgot on this stream, we've been going for a while, I forgot to say one of my favorite parts about this world is that fairy technology has advanced the realms immeasurably in Edenarth. So you have different clans of fae, all descended from the Aristra Fae, who have not been seen for 1,000 years after they disappeared into the clouds. And so these different clans of fae,
got an opening right there.
The Netherdusk Fae, who are very, their magic is very kinetic, very physical. So therefore, you have a lot of like the mysterious, just like circusy, mysterious kind of, you know, fair stuff. And then you've got the Fae in the realm of Nexamith, who are the Fegwin Fae clan that I created. Because I don't necessarily do the unseelie sealy thing. It's just these fairies are just another race in the world with the humans.
Right.
And the Fegwin Fae clan were responsible for what is referred to in Edenarth as fairy, which is FERI, the Fairy Energy Revolution and Industry. And in Edenarth, we have things like crystal ball communications, like a cell phone, and enchanted magic mirrors that you can touch, like
touch screeners. Yes.
You have fairy technology made for mass consumption at the right price, of course. So, right, and so you have those kinds of elements. So it is very fantasy, and that's very much my magic system. So, and the fact of we have Adela, who's a girl who's just a peasant, who finds out that she's the bloodline heir to the kingdom next door, and so she has to go to Royal High. Very Harry Potter. You're a wizard. Right. You're a wizard, Harry. I'm like, what? And so, you know, it's like that is time and tide. Like, we all know those tales of the chosen one, the person who figures out, oh my gosh, I have something meant for more. I have to leave everything behind to go do this. And so we see Adela carving out that path for her. But back on the cryptide thing, definitely Adela and her friends have a calling that is very meant for her. And being inspired by growing up with Dungeons and Dragons and World of Warcraft. I loved paladins. I've always loved paladins. And the paladin lore in World of Warcraft specifically is very like, you know, for the light and the blessing of the light. And it's very, you know, you've got the Arthas storyline, Jaina Proudmoore and all of that. And it's just so, that was Lich King expansion was my favorite expansion. And I played a little bit in Kata, but I really did stop after Lich. I felt like that was one of their strongest storylines. And so I played a hunter and a paladin, and when Chronicles of Royal High was created, paladins weren't even really part of it. It wasn't until like my later teen years. And essentially it became a tale of Adela and her friends. These dragons are invading their world. They were imprisoned by the Fae and the first 5 paladins. Basically, everybody died in that last battle, which is referred to as the Astralore battles 1,000 years before.
He dies, she dies, everybody dies.
It's not a happy tale. It's not a happy tale, which will, God willing, be a novella I do write in the future. A sad tale I do write. And so Adela is at Royal High, and she's connected to Brogan, who I don't want to. All the paladin stuff starts to really come into play, and it is my own lore. It's my own lore, and I don't want to give away so much because we learned so much about it in the second book. It's such a reveal of just the things that finally fall into place. But they've been peppered through the whole thing, and so I basically redefine paladins in my world. So they don't fit in dragons. I need some water. They don't fit into Dungeons and Dragons. They don't fit into World of Warcraft, but they've definitely borrowed from that. So anyways, that's my cryptid thing. It's like, who's to say what are the rules? If you're telling a good story and you make people believe it, did you believe it?
Then you've done the thing, and it is now real. So
anyway, so there we go.
So we have another question, one more question, and then we'll go to the giveaway.
Yes.
And I just want to say, if you're watching out there, now is the time. Start putting your name into the comments, you guys, and I will get those to put them on the wheel of win. Spin, spin, spin. Let me find our question here so I can pull it up for you.
I'll go a bit quicker if you want to get a few more questions. I won't be so rabbit hole-ish. We can get like a speed round if you want to get.
Oh, I think this may be our last one. Maybe there may have been one more. Let me.
Yes. I love that question.
Yeah. Okay, yes. Ren fairs are filled with colorful characters and people. Do you find some of those people inspire your characters in your novels?
Jason was directly inspired by a few sources. The way Jason looks to me was directly inspired by one of the NorCal fair workers that I had a crush on when I was like 14 or 15. He was so cute. I don't even know who he is. Like, I only saw him like 1 or 2 years there. I think I barely said hi. You know,
Yeah.
Jason was absolutely, the look of Jason was directly inspired by him. And Jason and Blake have been inspired by just, everybody's been inspired by people I've known, just parts of people I've known. So, but the look of Jason came straight from Redford. Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yes.
So, okay. So yes, I guess that is in fact the last question that I have. And
Okay. Did you have a few more questions?
let me look. I wrote down 2 questions, but I think I got both of my questions in. Um, yeah, no, I got my questions. So yeah, so I'm good. Yes. So now is the time. Please enter your name if you would like to be entered to win. And of course, if you are one of our Patreon patrons, you already will get an automatic entry. So if you put your name in the comments now, that will give you your.
How long are we waiting for this? How many minutes do we have on this?
Well, if I
I'm going to
mean.
share it on
I
my
normally
personal.
give people time to put their name in the comments. So a few minutes. I mean, were you going to post about it?
Yeah.
Okay, do the thing. And because I want to show you guys, so I'm gonna put in big and me really quick so everybody can see. And then you're still there, so I'll bring you back here in a second. And but I want to show you guys because at the beginning of the show, I did the unboxing of Rachel's books that I got from her, and so this is the one that she read today, and it came with this insert in it here. So I just wanted to show this to you guys so you can kind of see. So it came with that. It came with the note, and it also came with the parchment paper, which here, the parchment paper here. But this is, so whoever wins the drawing today, Rachel is going to sign your book for you live here on the show. And this is what she did for me when I got mine. So she made it just really beautiful and personal, and I'll just hold it a little bit closer for you guys. Has a quote in there, "A paladin's heart must be strong." And this is a quote from the book. And kind of a central theme, as she was explaining to us earlier. So that today's giveaway is for that was book number 1, or book number 2. I'll show you book number 1. This is book number 1, The Lost Noble in this series. Which also comes with the insert that just fell on me. Also autographed. Like, now is the time to get the autograph of this future super famous author. And here is the beautiful insert here. Welcome to Edenath, all my best. And hashtag adventure on. I feel like that needs to be one of my hashtags all the time now on Instagram.
It's a great hashtag, adventure on.
We go on so many adventures ourselves that I'm like, oh, I should add that to my little list of hashtags that I always do. So let me see those names, and I will start getting you guys onto the wheel of spin. And Rachel's still with us. She's actually just making a little bit, I think, of a post to her media. Yes, I'm gonna bring you back here real quick. Although I see that you're doing the posting there. That's okay. So we have Gunther and Newt. Oh, I can spell things.
Oh, bless my dad. He shared it on my page.
All right, you guys, these are your last chances, because I see there's like so many people out there watching. So get your names, type your names. I see Ivy, I've got you. Am I missing anybody else? I have been specifically instructed to not enter Quasi and the Gargoyles. I assume that's a reference to Quasimodo?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't go into Quasi and the Gargoyles. He can have all the free books he wants. He made that art and with my dad.
I guess he's pretty close to the source. Okay, there it is. So now you have just sent out the message to your people, right? to do the thing. Are they going to be commenting on the YouTubes?
I directed him to. I hope it works.
Wait, to the what?
I've directed him to the YouTube, so hopefully it
okay.
works. But
Okay.
maybe, but yeah.
I'm thinking to myself here that I want to see. I just feel like I missed a question somewhere in there, and
I'm down. Beautiful day.
but these are the. No, I've got all the questions that I wrote down during and also if you guys if there's any last questions, I'd love to take maybe one more while we're letting the people via the medias come enter the giveaway. Let's see. It's funny that you said about the spiders because I was like, spiders are not like I'm okay with the spiders, but moths are the thing.
You don't like moths?
No, I Oh, this is funny. The artwork was inspired. Wait, your dad did the artwork for you on
Oh
the
yeah,
cover?
my dad's my artist.
Oh, that's so
Yeah.
cool. I'm like, wait, what? What are we talking about? That is so cool. And he says his artwork was inspired from the early years playing D&D. So here's one at a time, I guess, because I'm on half screen. That's so cool.
Thank you.
Well, good job, Dad. You did pretty good art. I will confess that I liked both of them. So here's a new question. Here we go. Do you have any new worlds? Any new worlds or series planned for you to write in the nearest future? And Chris, I will enter you. I see your name there.
Do I have any new worlds planned?
New worlds or series planned for the future?
Yes, I do actually.
Oh.
I always said to myself, if I never write anything aside from Chronicles of Royal High ever again, then I don't. But in the last few years, I've definitely gotten inspired to write a few things. And so I've got a few film scripts I actually want to write. And there's another fantasy world I want to write about. Definitely. I swore I would never get into paranormal romance world. But a total like werewolves and vampires Van Helsing story like brewing. And I'm just like, okay, fine. I need to do more research to make sure nobody's anything similar because there's so much. But yeah, so I definitely don't. Chronicles Royal High won't be the last thing I write for sure. There's also a non-fiction, still kind of little fiction. Basically, it'll technically be fiction, but it'll be very, very, very heavily rooted in realism. About I don't want to give too much away, but it would definitely be just labeled as straight YA / kind of like a female book about non-fantasy, and it would be like a modern, normal tale. Very close to my heart. I don't necessarily want to give it away, but yeah. So lots of stuff. I would not doubt that I would write something.
You also have one other question of what authors did you dislike at first but grew into?
Authors did I dislike at first but grew into. R. Salvatore, actually. He was a bit tough for me to get into at first, but then I really fell in love with Drizzt, and I just kept reading Drizzt.
That's so funny. I've got my very first book from that author at NorwestCon so many years ago, which is Northwest Science Sci-Fi-Fantasy Convention up here. It's one of the longest running here in Washington, and in the con bag, in your goodie bag, that was one of that author's books was in there, and so that's kind of funny. A little overlap there.
Yeah. It took me a while to get into Drizzt. He was an amazing recommendation. Honestly, R.A. Salvatore is one of the greats. But for me, like I wanted something to read, and I wanted something kind of a little bit more outside my wheelhouse because I don't necessarily go for the dark fantasy, though I do like dark fantasy. And so my friend came on to it, and my friend turned me on, and it took me a few starts to get through those first few chapters. I mean, like I read I think the first Drizzt book, like the intro to Drizzt, and then from there I started reading. Like it took, I got it, but yeah, that one, you'd think it would be an immediate hook, just because he's so prolific and so known and stuff, but.
Okay, one more question. And then we'll do the drawing. So you guys, this is your last chance. Get your names in there. I think I've got everybody so far. The last question is, and I think this is kind of an interesting one. What is the most difficult thing about writing characters from the opposite sex?
Making sure the dialogue is realistic.
Yeah.
I would definitely say not necessarily motivation. I don't really deal with motivation, because people do just humanity as a whole. I mean, we all usually want the basic things, same thing. So not necessarily motivation, but definitely I'd say the dialogue to get there. Sometimes I struggle a little. So I definitely have to refer to well. I have a little brother. He's 4 years younger than me. He's awesome.
Gotcha, Holly.
I'll bounce stuff off of him. And then just really, just pulling on the male relationships in my lives and just kind of, just kind of checking, be like, hey, this would be accurate, right? They would say, right. Springboarding. So I'd say definitely writing male dialogue, especially okay, so that's the thing. I love Jason and Blake. When I'm writing something funny they're saying, that's easy. But when I need to carry the story along and it might get kind of exposition-y or something, that's when I kind of
Gotta double check it.
Yeah.
All right, guys. This now is the moment of truth, and I have to say also, I'm gonna get our wheel here, but I do want to reiterate that because our Patreon members get an automatic entry, there are names that will be on this wheel that might not actually be out there in the audience right now. So if we get one of those, I will let you still sign it to them, sign it to them here online. But it is possible that that might not be a thing. So I shall now click the wheel. Maybe as soon as I find which screen I had that on. Okay, here we go. Oh my gosh, it went so fast. Oh, wow. Okay, Baroness Gail, congratulations. You totally just won a book.
And more.
Yes, Talon and Lauer is how he pronounces it. Yes, those are her younglings. She's actually one of our big Patreon supporters and comes to all of the Fairy Blossom festivals and has just been
so glad then.
Yeah, she's been a long time patron and supporter of all of Faye Productions stuff. So
let's get the Chronicles of Royal High up to Washington.
Yes, I can't believe. So when I spin the wheel on my other computer, it goes so slow, and this one just zoomed right through. So that tells you something about the connection for sure.
Perfect. Okay, so let me. So actually, let me write those names down really quickly, so then you can go full screen.
Okay.
And then I will sign that real time right now.
And that will be amazing too. She probably isn't watching right now based on her schedule, but I know that they will after the fact. So that is cool.
So there's Gail. Actually, I love, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't, took my brain a minute to process. That name Talon is in the second book.
Oh, he'll like that.
The name Talon is actually a very important character later in the second book. Interesting. Okay. All right, I've got it, and I've got this, so let's do an on-screen signing.
All right, shall I embiggen you?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
So for Baroness Gail, Talon, and Lauer?
Lauer, yes. Lauer. Like sour, but with an L.
So for Baroness Gail, Talon, and Lauer, you guys are Patreon supporters of Faye Productions and Fairy Princess Lolly. I just want to say thank you for supporting her. And when you guys do see this, you are getting book package from me, The Chronicles of Royal High. You are getting book 1. And book 2, probably should switch them on screen. There you go. Book 1 and book 2. And so this will be coming up to you guys. I'm super excited to get this to you, and I'm going to sign them on screen really quickly. And we will get you good to go. Where is my pens?
This is awesome. Thank you so much for doing this. This is the first time we've ever had this. Yes, the first time we've ever had this. And so please, if you guys are watching out there at home, please hit the like and subscribe. And all of Rachel's information is also, yay, yes, you have such beautiful handwriting.
Thank you.
Did you
personalized and sent out to you guys?
So did you feel like, just a quick question, did you feel like when you have you always just had like fancy handwriting, or did you feel like you had to practice learning how to write a little more like calligraphic when you knew you were going to start signing books so that it would look awesome and befitting of the genre of Royal High?
So I got sick of signing my full name everywhere, so I started doing that. That was a few years ago, even before I was doing book signings. I worked an office job, a corporate job, and we had to just sign everything. And so then I just was like, nah, and I just right. Guys. But it's such a distinctive my swirl, my scribble, that there's no mistaking who the heck that is. Like you never know. And it was just easier to get through stacks of paperwork that way. And then as far as handwriting goes, I recently came across very, very old work of mine, like 7, 8 years old, 9 years old work. Like when I was like 7, 8, 9 years old, 10 years old and stuff.
Oh, so it's handwritten.
and I saw, just actually stories I wrote, because I found like a mini book I started to write. I forgot about it. I was 9 years old. It was Rachel's Funny Stories and Tales or something like that. And it was like this little anthology I was writing, and just different short stories. And I realized I started writing that in 2000. I just did that. And I was like, actually, no, I just turned 8. No, it was 2001. It was either 2000 or 2001. But I was right there. I looked at my handwriting, and I was just like, I actually think my handwriting was better then. It was just like perfect script. And I'm just like,
wow.
Kid.
Well, I guess the thing that made me the thing that made me ask that was knowing that the Disney princesses yes,
they have to be the same.
Yep, they have to be able to do that. And so I wondered if you're like, I'm going to be signing books where there's princes and princesses. Better make it fancy.
It's funny you brought that up. That actually was one of the reasons why I started doing the same thing.
Yep.
Because of that, because the princess signatures have to be the same, just time and time again, no matter who you get. So that actually was kind of part of a springboard for me too, is just to know I have something that I can just replicate over and over.
Yep. Well, I too have my fancy signature, although it wasn't Disney that inspired me, but it was just, I think it was just knowing that historically, and when you look at all the documents and, Queen Elizabeth as well, her signature is very famous. And I was like, well, I guess I had better learn the art of handwriting. So
something to have in your wheelhouse.
Yeah. Oh, the useless talents and skills, right? What can you do? I can write really fancy with big five-point words. Okay, so that is enough about all of that. Thank you so much for being on the show this afternoon. Wow, we have. Oh no, it's been great. We've talked ourselves for so long, and it's been a really fun time. And thank you for doing the reading, which is wonderful, and the signing, all of the things. So, do you have any last things you'd like to say to the audience out there before we bid you good afternoon?
Just that. Thank you for having me. Right, for anybody who is an aspiring writer yourself. And this is what I tell people too. The 2 most important things to remember are consistency will get you anywhere you want to go in life, mostly. And so, even if you don't think you're as talented as so-and-so, there are people who have talent coming out of their ears who don't do anything with it. And there are people who are pretty good, talented, but they are consistent.
Yes.
And that will always take you where you want to go, especially if you have a dream in your heart. You owe it to yourself to just pursue that. And secondly, don't ever compare your chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20, because comparison is the thief of joy, and it'll discourage you. And that's not fair to yourself to look at where you are and then look at where someone else is, because everybody has their own pace and their own tale. So, so if you're an aspiring writer, I just want to kind of leave you with that. But yeah, no, this was wonderful. Thank you for having me. If anybody wants my books, you can go to my website.
Yes, all of the information is.
Yeah, I think she linked all my information.
Instagram, Facebook, all in the low bar as well.
You can, so my books all over are available on Amazon and Kindle. So you can download them, or you can just get the Amazon, it'll send this to you in 2 days. Or to mitigate COVID, and because we're not, I can't do my book signings in person. If you live in the United States, I am offering the book packages like what she showed earlier.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that totally reminded me that you read the chapter with the quote, "What the spell?" And with that, yes, which is you have pins on your website that say "What the spell" on them.
Oh, and it's a necklace. It's a necklace.
A necklace. Yeah.
So in my world, instead of saying "What the hell," they say "What the spell."
Right.
Very fantasy pop for you, but yeah.
I
so
liked it.
if you like books like that, if you love what you heard me reading earlier, and you want to just escape into another world, give Chronicles of Royal High a try. I very much can almost promise you, if you like fantasy pop stuff, if you're into Hogwarts meets Dungeons and Dragons, you'll be
if I make it to NorCal, I'm gonna come fangirl you. Oh my gosh, I know you.
I've been trying to make it up. This was the year. We're very California based, and we do venture out, but then throughout 2020 and into 2021, our game plan was to really canvas all the West Coast, Washington, Utah, Oregon, Arizona. We wanted to really expand outside of NorCal, and it's just, hey, we're all inside now.
But making good use of it, and next year is going to be crazy. Everybody will be.
I think it's going to be a new renaissance next year. I think Renaissance Square, but I think an actual, because what follows dark times, right?
Right.
What follows darkness? Light.
Light. Yep.
We're definitely 2021. Save us.
Right.
A great explosion of just great things. So.
All right, my lady. I shall bid you a good afternoon, and we will see you anon. Have a good one.
Yes. Thank you, guys.